Congratulations, baby. Make me what I wanna be. Congratulations, baby. One and only love. Just you.
My heart can't beat, baby, unless you tell it to. My eyes can't see, baby, unless you tell them to. There are things I should do, but I know it's just no use, 'cause I'm controlled by your love. I'm controlled by your love. Oh, yes, I am. Now I can't breathe, baby, unless you tell me to. And I can't speak, baby, unless you tell me to. It sounds strange, this I know, but it's really, really so, 'cause I'm controlled by your love. I'm controlled by your love. Oh, yes, I am. Anything I say or do means nothing to me. I'm controlled by your love, and that's plain to see. But I'm proud to be controlled. I'm proud to be controlled by your love. My heart can't beat, baby, unless you tell it to. My eyes can't see, baby, unless you tell them to. It sounds strange, this I know, but it's really, really so, 'cause I'm controlled by your love. I'm controlled by your love. Oh, yes, I am. I'm controlled by your love, baby.
My love is gone, and how I miss her warm embrace. Her tenderness and our kisses used to taste. Now when she left, a part of me died. I'd see the day a girl would make me cry. Can't you see that I need you? And without you, my life will be blue. But now you're gone, gone, gone. Baby, I said you're gone, gone, gone. Yes, you are. Gone, gone, gone. I'm so all alone. I still remember the good times that we had. But I can't believe that our love has become a thing of the past. Each night I prayed that the next day she would return. If you will, then my poor heart will no longer burn. Can't you see, girl, that I need you? And without you, my life will be so blue. But now you're gone, gone, gone. Baby, baby, I said you're gone, gone, gone. My baby is gone, gone, gone. I'm so all alone. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Gone, gone, gone. I feel it every day. She's gone, gone, gone. I feel it deep down. All that song, gone, gone. It's so long, it's so long.
Don't wanna clip your wings, 'cause together we can fly. I know the truth can't sting, but there's a bitter taste to lies. So I say something out loud, hope to have it becomes true. Wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Looking for love, but we're guilty of wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Taking a chance on a little romance. Don't wanna cage you in. I don't mean to pry. I know the chances slim, but still I have to try. So I say something out loud. Hope to have it becomes true. Wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Looking for love, but we're guilty of wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Taking a chance on a little romance. Wishful thinking. Looking for love, but we're guilty of wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Taking a chance on a little romance. Wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Looking for love, guilty of wishful thinking, wishful thinking. Taking a chance on a little romance.
I just tremble all over. I can never get to say what I wanna, but one day, girl, I'm gonna walk up to you and ask your name. Tell you mine and then I'll take your hand. Place the ring on your finger, give you a kiss that's gonna make you take it lovely. woman. Hey, lovely, lovely woman. I practice every day on the words I wished I could say. But every time I open my mouth, I try to speak, but nothing comes out. Lovely, lovely woman. Hey, lovely, lovely woman. Oh, I practice every day on the words I wish I could say. But every time I open my mouth, I try to speak, but nothing comes out. Lovely, lovely woman. I say lovely, lovely woman. Such a lovely woman, baby. Yes, you are, yes, you are. I put your hand in my arm, baby. But I just can't even miss the one. And all of you, my time, no.
You think it's easy to give love when there's no love in return, but you're wrong. I spend my life hoping that she would come back home to make it right. My days are long, my world is wrong while she's away. I didn't think she would ever leave me for another guy, but she did. I was surprised when she said her last goodbye. Oh, how I cried. When I can't sleep, all I do is weep, 'cause she's on my mind. All I do is weep. She's on my mind. Why her love's not showing? My love keeps on growing each passing day of my life. Oh, how I long to hear the words she used to say. Oh, how I pray.
Hello everyone.
Someday, while she's away, I can't sleep. All I do is weep. She's on my mind.
Literary event for the first time in a very long time. So thank you to everyone who came out. Maybe give yourselves a round of applause. I'm the producer. I'm a writer, but I'm also the producer and host of a reading series. It's called the Violet Hour Reading Series and Book Club. And I was thrilled to ask to co-present tonight's event with Tomson Highway and Ann-Marie MacDonald, two members of the 2S LGBTQ community who have provided so many pathways for writers like me, and for that I am forever grateful. I'm going to ask them both now to come up on the stage, Ann-Marie MacDonald and Tomson Highway. To start tonight's event, though, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered in a place known as Chajage in the Kahanya-Kahaga language and Muniyang in the language of the Anishinaabe. The producers of tonight's event, The Association of English Language Publishers of Quebec and the Quebec Writers Federation represent a diverse community who live and work on the territories of many Indigenous peoples, including the Kanien'kehá:ka, Abenaki, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat. As organizations celebrating local books, we acknowledge the first storytellers of these lands and offer our gratitude. One thing that I am grateful for is the current renaissance of Indigenous literature in Canada, especially written by Two-Spirit and queer Indigenous writers. I've learned so much from the work over the years. The Violet Hour was named after the color violet in the 2S LGBTQ pride flag. Each color represents something different, and violet represents spirit. And that's what I think defines so much of queer literature, spirit. This spirit is fully on display in so many of the books being written by today's Two-Spirit and queer Indigenous writers. We see them everywhere. Voices like Joshua Whitehead, Jay Simpson, Billy Ray Belcourt, Ariel Twist, and Jas M. Morgan, all emerging writers who are forging their own paths and creating futures for so many other Two-Spirit and queer Indigenous youth. But before all of them, there was Tomson. Ann-Marie MacDonald will be the one to give Tomson a proper introduction, but as an emerging queer author myself, I do want to thank Tomson Highway for his work. Your plays, your novel, your children's books, and now your first memoir have helped to create the landscape that we play upon today, and for that I am grateful. Can't wait for this interview. A little housekeeping before we begin. It takes a village to make events like the Holiday Book Fair happen. In addition to the hard work of the Association of English Language Publishers of Quebec and the Quebec Writers Federation, I'd like to acknowledge the generous support of the Government of Canada, the Literary Translators Association of Canada, Babar Books, the Montreal Gazette, Penguin Random House Canada, as well as our invaluable bookseller partner, Paragraph Books. Just to know, we're going to be doing a Q&A after the talk, both online and in person. So if you are online and would like to ask a question, you can post it in the chat or comment section, and Deanna at Mission Control will relay it to me. One other thing, if you have a cell phone, I know we don't have this reflex anymore because we're not in the same room as often. Please turn it off just to make sure we're not disrupted during the conversation. Now on with the interview. I can think of no other person I'd rather hear lead this discussion than Ann-Marie MacDonald. Ann-Marie is a novelist, playwright, actor, and broadcast host. Her work in each capacity has been honored with numerous awards, including the Chalmers, the Governor General's, Gemini, Dora Mava Moore, and John Draney Awards, and the Commonwealth Prize. Her dramatic work include the plays Goodnight Desdemona, Good Morning Juliet, and Belle Morale, A Natural History. The libretto, sorry for the popping here, but the libretto for the chamber opera, Negretto Hotel, and book and lyrics for Anything That Moves. The novels Fall on Your Knees, The Way the Crow Flies, and Adult Onset. Her written work is produced and published internationally in so many languages. Ann-Marie graduated from the acting program of the National Theatre School in Canada in 1980. In 2019, she was made Officer of the Order of Canada. Over to you, Ann-Marie.
Thank you very, very much, Christopher. Thank you so much. I am thrilled and honored to be here on stage with Tomson Highway.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I am too. I'm thrilled and honored to be here on stage with Ann-Marie MacDonald.
I left a pause there, Tomson, just so that everybody could really feel for a moment how special it is to be in a room with you. And you very graciously filled that pause with words of appreciation for me, which I think is classic, and I think that kind of is a really good introduction to the spirit of this book. This book, I hold it to my heart because it feels like a love letter, but we're going to get to that in a moment. I would like to just make sure that I properly contextualize. I'm not going to take it for granted that everybody is on the same page. But Tomson is a great artist, a great human being, and a great Canadian. And we're very privileged to have him tonight. And not many people are doing much traveling anywhere these days, so we're extra lucky. I'm just going to read a little bit from Tomson's bio. Tomson Highway is the proud son of legendary caribou hunter and world champion dog sled racer Joe Highway, and artist in her own right, Pelagie Highway. A full-blood Cree, Tomson is a registered member of the Barren Lands First Nation, the village for which is called Brochet, located in northern Manitoba, where it meets Saskatchewan and what is now called Nunavut. Today, Tomson writes novels, plays, and music for a living. He also performs. Having studied music and English literature at the universities of Manitoba and Western Ontario, as well as in England, he has earned both his Bachelor of Music Honours in Piano Performance and the equivalent of a Bachelor of Arts in English major, both from Western. For 7 years, Tomson immersed himself in the field of Native social work on reserves and in urban centres across Canada. At the age of 30, he started writing music, plays, and eventually novels. Tomson achieved national and international recognition in 1986 with his 6th play, the multi-award-winning The Rez Sisters, which was just remounted at Stratford last summer. This was followed in 1989 by its companion play, the even more successful Dry Lips Oughta Move to Kapuskasing. From 86 to 92, Tomson was artistic director of Native Earth Performing Arts. At the time, it was Toronto's only professional Native theatre company, and the list of alumni from that theatre company makes scintillating reading in its own right. It's incredibly impressive and so important. In 1998, Tomson published his first novel, Kiss of the Fur Queen, and he has to his credit 3 children's books, Caribou Song, Dragonfly Kites, and Fox on the Ice. All are written bilingually in Cree, which is Tomson's mother tongue, and English. Tomson speaks fluent Cree, French, and English. Now, it says here that your Spanish is catching up, and I bet it caught up, and it probably has just, exceeded your Italian, maybe. I don't know. Do you speak Spanish as well?
No, I don't speak Spanish.
But
I can pick my way through it.
Okay.
I can talk to taxi drivers.
Okay, very important.
This way, that way.
But you're
Italian.
pretty much fluent in Italian as
Yeah.
well, right? And French. You pretty much live in French these
I live in
days.
French.
Yeah.
In Gatineau, Quebec. I live in Gatineau, Quebec.
I'm going to race through this because we just want to chat. Okay, he's got this many honorary doctorates, I think. There's that many.
Yes.
And in 1994, he was made a member of the Order of Canada. Oh, I like this one. In 1998, Maclean's magazine named Tomson as one of the 100 most important people in Canadian history. In 2001, Tomson, yes, thank you. Tomson received a National Indigenous Achievement Award, now the Indispire Awards in the field of arts and culture. And no doubt there's lots that's been left out. But now we can just chat because Tomson's here.
Yes. And what can I say? What do you,
I'm going to ask you. I've got questions to ask.
Oh, absolutely. Ask away. Ask away.
Okay. Did you write in English or in Cree when you wrote the book?
I wrote the half of it. I wrote in Cree, in my head and in my heart, and also on paper too. When I lose the language, when I can't find the right word in English, I switch to Cree because the characters I write about in the book don't speak English. My parents didn't speak English. Even my oldest brothers and sisters didn't speak English, and I'm the 11th or 12th children. So. Today, even the oldest ones who are still alive today, still don't speak English. I come from a part of the world that is completely isolated on its own.
It's a subarctic, and you were born in a snowbank.
I was born in a snowbank.
And you know, when I read that, I thought, oh, that's hyperbole. He wasn't really born in a. And I thought, oh, okay, actually, that's.
Well, you see, one of the reasons I wrote this book is because most Canadians know a very, very narrow stretch of Canada that borders the American border. Okay? And what most Canadians have never seen is the north of that, because there's a lot of it. As you know, for instance, that the distance between the Manitoba and Nunavut border, where I come from, I always like to exaggerate my life story just a bit by saying that I was conceived in Nunavut and born in Manitoba. That's how close it was. And unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of the conception. Because there were no cameras up there back then. But anyway, so nobody knows that territory. I just want people to know it, and that being born in snowbanks was normal. Almost everybody was born that way in those. We were a nomadic caribou hunting culture, and most everybody was born that way. They were born in tents, canvas tents erected in snowbanks. They were born in lean-to. Some of them were born in lean-tos, with one side of the shelter exposed to the elements, in like freezing northern subarctic climate, like 40 below weather. And a lot of them were, and then further north of us, there were people who were born in houses made of ice.
Yeah.
They're called igloos. And that happened all day. There was nothing unusual about it. It was part of the culture, part of the lifestyle.
And the night that you were born,
Yeah.
your big sister, who is 9 years old at the time, is that
12,
Louise?
12.
12 years old
Yeah.
at the time, Louise.
Yeah.
She's 9 years old when your mother makes her stay up all night smoking cigarettes. That's
That's
another
right.
thing. To stay awake, literally,
Yeah.
so that you will survive till morning.
Yeah.
You and your mother.
She saved my life.
She
by
saves your,
smoking cigarettes all night long at the age of 12. Yeah.
by keeping the fire going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mother was desperate. My father had to go hunting because we had no more food, and we were heading south back to the village of Brochet, where we usually went for Christmas, because we were Catholics and we had to go to mass and all that sort of stuff. And but we didn't quite make it, so we stopped on this island about 150 miles north of the village of Brochet, but we were out of food, so my father had to go hunting for a caribou so he could feed us and the dogs, because the dogs don't go very far; they don't eat.
And you're a baby at this point.
And I was a baby. I was that morning that my father went hunting. I was 18 hours old.
Yeah.
I was a brand new,
You're infant.
fresh
Yeah.
from the oven, so to speak. And so they had to keep me alive, and so they were desperate. So my father went hunting, and my mother had only. Then the other kids were either all passed away, because with that kind of lifestyle, the infant mortality rate was really high. So normally, people had like 12, 14, 16, 18 children. It was normal back then. That was the lifestyle. And normally they lost about six or seven of them, 6 or 8 of them, which left another 8 still living, which is like about 6 times more than the average nuclear Canadian family. But the point was, my mother was left alone with a 12-year-old girl to guard her, and so she couldn't. My sister Louise, who was 12, couldn't fall asleep, otherwise the fire in that tent would
fall asleep
die.
and you would die.
And we would all freeze to death, and that's
Yeah.
all there was to it. And so my mother tried every trick in the book to keep her awake, and the only way she had heard one of my aunts say that smoking keeps you awake, and so she made my mother, she rolled cigarettes for my 12-year-old sister, and she sat there all night long smoking cigarettes and keeping the fire going.
And your sister grew up to never smoke cigarettes again. I
And
think.
ever since then,
Yeah.
she's never smoked again.
Done with
right.
that.
Yeah.
So this memoir takes us from your birth to when you finish. I think about grade 9 residential school.
That book takes us. My life story is so exciting that I had to I only went to age 15. I only go to age 15 in this book because my plan is to chronicle. If I live to be 75, that would make 5 books, each lasting 15 years, right? So that's my plan. And so there was so much happened to me up to age 15, and so much colorful and extraordinary things that I had to stop at age 15, and that's where that book takes us.
Yeah, and colorful is the word, and the names. Because
Yes.
you talk about how this is a bit of a shape-shifty book, and some of it is fantastical, and most of it happened.
Yep.
But the names.
Well, it's a very funny. Cree is the funniest language in the world. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go on.
So
Continue.
like Stairloon, Samba cheese, Happy Doll.
Yeah.
And so Samba cheese is what you make of Jean-Baptiste.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
And-
okay, that part of the world, northern Manitoba, was missionized by like there was a race for the souls of Native people up in northern Canada between the Anglicans, the Methodists, the Presbyterians, the Catholics, and
the Catholics,
God knows what else.
yeah.
In that part of the world, the Catholics won by hair. Thank God, because I wouldn't have made a very good Protestant. My casseroles are terrible.
You what?
My casseroles, you know, for the United Church suppers, I would never have survived. Anyway, So we were all Catholics, and we were very good Catholics. Because my dialect of the Cree language is the fastest dialect in the world. It's so fast that I'm going to give you some examples later on. That when you say the Hail Marys, the fastest Hail Marys in the world.
The fastest Hail Marys in the world.
I heard in northern Manitoba. My mother used to regularly, when lip readers come to northern Manitoba to read her lips, they usually go blind. Yes, and so my mother used to say her Hail Mary so fast that sparks would fly out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Inside the confessional, one time she set the priest on fire.
She set the priest on fire.
His cancer took flame.
Yeah.
And he tried to put himself in it. And you know what he said in the middle of it all? He said, "Holy smoke!" And that's where that expression comes from. So anyway, so the names we couldn't pronounce English. I still have difficulty pronouncing certain English words like digital. I can't say that.
Yeah.
My tongue just doesn't work that way. My tongue was not trained for pronouncing those kinds of syllables. My tongue was trained for other purposes. And that's classic Cree. Cree, because of the way because a trickster invented it, a clown invented it. Okay, that was the first mythological character that was given to us by the Creator, who was a female force, a female divinity. So therefore, the language is it's funny and very sexual. Every second syllable it has sexual innuendo to it, you know.
Yeah.
And so we translated that to English, that energy. Anyway. So the missionaries named all the kids that they baptized, gave them all French names. The names of the French saints.
Yeah,
so Saint Jean-Baptiste, we couldn't pronounce that. So the closest we did was Saint-Baptiste.
Saint-Baptiste.
Yeah, and that's how I spell it in my books.
Yeah.
There's samba, as in the dance, the Brazilian dance, and samba meant nothing to us. It was just two syllables, two nonsensical syllables stuck together. And cheese, as in the food. As in cheddar. So that's the name. There's several samba cheeses in my book, because there was lots of samba cheeses in northern Manitoba back in those days. There was samba cheese Wheatago, samba cheese Choice, samba cheese this, samba cheese that, samba cheese Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
No relation to Ella Fitzgerald.
Okay.
And
oh
anyway, so they're crazy. They're crazy names like Sterloon is Esther. That's how we say Esther. That's the best we could do with the name of Esther was Stare. So I spell it stairs and staring at somebody. And their last name was Tatsinanari, which is a Dene word for loon, the bird. And so that's the name of the character in my book, Stare Loon. It's a loon who stares. And her husband was called Modeste, because that's the name of a French saint too, Saint Modeste.
Yeah.
And but the best we could do with that was modest. So now I have a loon who is very modest in my book. For instance, that kind of humor. But my favorite is, there's many of them, Happy Doll, Meat Toss.
Zebediah Zipper.
Zippity Zipper. That's my uncle. and so on and so forth. But my favorite is Angelique. Angelique, in English, the name, it's one of my favorite names, my favorite female names is Angelique. It's so polite, in English. In French, of course, it's Angelique. Yeah? But the best we could do with that, as Cree, was Aslick.
Aslick.
So you hear that in the village, occasionally when somebody's looking for his wife or whoever, you hear them calling, Aslick! For instance.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and that's where the names come from. They're mispronunciations of white men's names.
Yeah, yeah. So we get the first 5 years of your life, and then you go to residential school, and we get the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of
9 years, yeah.
Pardon me?
9 years.
9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And but you also go home every summer.
Every summer. For the 2 most beautiful months of the summer.
Yeah, extraordinary. Now, you also mentioned about the infant mortality, and people are having lots of children, and this is one of the only negative notes that you sound in this book, because this book is Permanent Astonishment it's aptly named, because it's so full of love.
Yep.
And there are only a couple of times where I hear that note where you talk about the spiritual extortion of the Catholic Church in preventing people from having access or practicing any form of birth control whatsoever. So you're describing all the little coffins going by, and you're a kid watching them go by your window.
Yep, that's right, yeah. The route from the church to the cemetery passed right by our house, and in the wintertime, my little brother and I would play by the window that face the road, where the little baby coffins would float by like birthday cakes. They looked like birthday cakes the way they were dressed up. They were homemade coffins because we didn't have a funeral home, and they were made of plywood, and they looked like little cakes. And they decorate them with this lace material, this lacy material, which would flutter in the breeze of a freezing February day, and they'd float past us, these cakes, on their way to the cemetery. And I always remember that, and lots of them. So there was babies died all the time.
Yeah.
And so we lost 5. My parents had 12 children, and we lost 5.
Those siblings, those 5 lost siblings of yours,
Yeah.
are also so present in this book.
Yep.
You know, they're present in, they're still members of your family as you're
That's right,
growing
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And they're very
Well,
present in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. This book is only scratched the surface of the reality of our spiritual reality, our mythological reality, our psychological reality. But one of them, of course, is coming in a book where our belief in death, what death is. I'd have to go into the where we were heavily Catholicized,
Yeah.
and there's a very dark vision of the afterlife, where if you're good, you go to heaven, and if you're bad, you go to hell. And there's very graphic descriptions of what happens in hell, as you all know. And it's just horrifying what happens to people. You're basically going to burn for 1 trillion years. You know, we can only imagine. Whereas there are other forms there are other cosmologies that are not monotheistic in nature, which is what Christianity is. There's only one God, and he's male, and he's a heterosexual male, which is what makes him so boring. But there's other ones where God is female, God is this, God is that, and that straight line does not exist. It's a circle. It's not a phallic concept. It's a bionic concept, a womb-like shape. And when you die, you don't go up or down. You just melt away, and you've crossed the circle, and you're just taken on. And you don't go away. You've just taken on another energy, but you're still here. A leaf on a tree, a blade of grass, a ray of sunshine, a gust of wind. That's you. That's your ancestors coming to visit you, coming to embrace you. Yeah. And so it's a much softer vision of death. So having your deceased siblings living with you from every day, like my brother Rene died of AIDS at age 35, the little boy, my little brother in the book, and he was 35. I don't miss him. He's still here, in another form, as another form of energy. He's sitting on the stage with me right as we speak. I have his lips, I have his voice. I'm nowhere near as beautiful as he was, but he was like stunningly beautiful. And he was a dancer, a modern dancer.
This is Rene
Highway, and he was stunningly beautiful, and he's always with me. I have his lips, I have his voice, I have this, I have that, I have his ass. Which is why I have such a gorgeous ass.
Wow.
I've been told
that
I've been told I have the ass of a ballet dancer. Isn't that wonderful? Would you like to see it?
It's not fair.
I'll show it at the end of the presentation, okay?
It's not fair for a writer to have that ass. That's just not fair.
Anyway, it's very nice though. Anyway, but I'm not the kind of person who blows their own horn. You see, I don't play the horn, I play the piano. And the last time I tried to blow my piano, I got very sore lips.
Okay, can you slow down and say that again, because now I have to go so fast.
I have a tendency
You're
to
almost
that's
going to
right.
break into a Hail Mary in a minute.
I told her in the lobby or whatever that room is called that I have a tendency to talk too fast because of my Cree language. It's the fastest language in the world, right?
And it's the Hail Mary effect.
It's a Hail Mary thing. Let's call it the Hail Mary syndrome. Anyway, I told her to lift up her hand and go, "Stop in the name of love before you break my heart."
Think it over.
Anyway, so I do talk fast, but death. The infant mortality rate was very high, but so it was here in Quebec too, before the Quiet Revolution.
And in Cape
like
Breton,
Jean
where my
Chrétien,
parents
our
were.
former prime minister, is the second oldest of 18 children, I think, 9 of whom died as babies. That was normal.
Yeah.
We're talking about another epoch, another time.
I wanted to ask, Tomson.
Death was always with us. Go ahead.
Well, just getting back to Rene for a moment, your beautiful, beautiful little brother. And I was chatting with somebody about the book, and she said she felt like this book is in part a love letter to Rene. He is so present in this book. and he's so adorable.
Yeah.
And
He was. He was very humble.
And there's such a beautiful duo between
Yeah.
the two little brothers. You're the big brother,
Yeah.
and he's the little brother, and the inseparability,
Yeah.
and your love and care of him, and then your description of being in love with every single student at that school.
I was. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
It's a symphony to my, not just to Renee, but to my family and to my people, really,
Yeah.
my culture. And we also had we were lucky in so many ways, and one of which was physical beauty.
Yeah.
Brochet was extraordinary for his beauty. There's a reason behind that. We can talk about a little later on in terms of the crossing of bloodlines. But we had extraordinary parents. Not only were they physically beautiful, my mother and my father, they were kind, they were funny,
And
they
strong.
were wise, the best parents that anybody could possibly have. I always like to brag about the fact that I come from the kind of marriage that they can only dream about in Hollywood. They will never make enough money in Hollywood to be able to afford the kind of marriage that I come from. 60 years of love, and yet more love. And that's where I come from. And I just want to celebrate that fact.
Comes across so beautifully.
Yeah.
They're a very romantic, in every sense of the word, couple.
They are.
And they're so strong
They're so strong.
and so independent and sexy and so extraordinarily competent. The level of competency is staggering.
Yeah, my father was a world championship dog sled racer. He was the Gilles Villeneuve of his day. And in
Yeah.
those days, I was born in 1951. The year I was born, he won the world championship, the dog sled racing, the most important one in the world. And so he really was a world champion, and they were extraordinary. And I just wanted to take a little pause here to talk about the beauty, their beauty. And that is like what people don't know, another thing about the North, but people don't know, Canadians don't know, is that we were colonized by the Vikings. The people don't know that. They came in, the Hudson's Bay Company was founded in 1670, for those of you who knew your grade 9 history. 1670, and founded in London, England, and rather than in order to trade for furs with my people, so they instead of crossing across the English Channel, because the English Channel was filled with piracy, because the French and the English were always fighting. Oh, the 400 Years' War, one of those wars, so it was too unsafe to travel that way. So they'd go up the other way. They come out the Thames and up the coast, up the east coast of Scotland, England and Scotland, and the last stop they made was the Orkney Islands, which is this beautiful, beautiful islands, rocky, basically rocks in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the North Sea actually, and that's where Orkney Islands are actually not Scottish, they're Norwegian. The Vikings came over in 1000 AD or some such thing, and they settled those rocks. And I've been there. We were there 2 summers ago specifically to go and see them, these people, and they are beautiful. They don't look Scottish. They're Norwegian. They're blonde. They're very fair skin, and many of them are very beautiful. They're almost as beautiful as you, but not quite. Anyway, Laurie. It's Laurie Sherwood I'm talking about, folks. Anyway, and then so they came across, and then so the Hudson's Bay Company, and also they had an educational system that was Scandinavian, not Scottish, so it was superior. So people studied mathematics and accounting, which is what the Hudson's Bay Company needed to run their trading posts across northern Canada, right? And so they hired 18-year-old boys, 20-year-old boys from the Orkney Islands, Vikings, and they brought them over to northern Manitoba via the Hudson's Bay, and they established all these fur trading posts across the north. And of course, those young men, they came without their women, right? So what do healthy young boys do, right? And so that way did Scandinavian blood enter our veins, which is where this stunning beauty comes from. When you come up to my part of the world, you'll see beautiful beauty. I have a cousin who looks like Elvis Presley at the height of his beauty. He's gone now. And my brother Rene wasn't very far from that. Yeah. I have girl cousins who look like Catherine Ross. You know, like from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Bitch Cassidy. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Catherine Ross, her name is Anya. She was just gorgeous. She's gone now too. But that's how and the boats that they rode up the river system from Hudson's Bay to come to our part of the world, interior, because we're not on Hudson's Bay, we're way in the interior. which is a network of rivers and 10,000 lakes in my part of the world. Okay, 10,000 lakes. So that's how they infiltrated our land that way. And the boats that they came up with, they had the wherewithal to build Viking boats. I don't know, long ships they call them. And those boats that came up were built. They looked like Viking ships. Wow. Back in the 18th and 19th century. So that's how we became part. I'm actually 164th or 164th or Orcadian.
So
I have Orcadian lips.
the Orkneymen are right here.
Yep. Anyway, you know, just one more story about the Orcadians. They say that Hudson's Bay Company was HBCO. That's what they call it, the HBC. Well, they say that it stands for the Hudson's Bay Company, but not us. To us, it stood for the Horny Boys Club.
Yeah, the Horny Boys Club, exactly.
And there you have the story. Boys will be boys, and girls will be girls.
And sometimes boys will be girls, and girls will be boys. And
Oh,
will be
yes,
neither
I
or both,
can't
right?
wait.
So-
I'm going to be the first one to write a love story between two guys, an Orkney Islander and a Cree man.
Ooh,
Yes.
wow, yeah.
I'm going to write that at Shock, Montreal.
Oh, totally.
Because of course here in Montreal, I don't have any homosexuals, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why I rarely come here.
So so another thing about so back to your dad, your father.
Yeah.
You promise your father, and he tells you that if you must continue your education,
That's
and he
right.
says learn English, and you dedicate yourself, and he said, and you will save our people,
Yep.
and you will lift us up, right?
Yep.
And so you, at a very tender age, you stay up late, you sneak into the bathroom, you're at residential school, you sneak under pain of what you think is going to be a whipping if you're caught, and you study English in the bathroom stall
Yes.
in the middle of the night.
Yep.
This crazy language that makes no sense. You talk about, Tomson talks about English in a way that makes you really sweat on behalf of anybody who's ever had to learn this.
Yeah.
This is so idiosyncratic and ridiculous.
Really, honest to God, it's just when you're learning it, it's from as a second, third. In my case, it was a third language already. It drives me nuts. Like I couldn't
So you're
like
Cree
though.
and French.
And Dene, that was, the
And
Cree
Dene,
people have
oh,
moved
Cree
so
and
far
Dene.
north. My father had moved so far north. We no longer lived in Dene, Cree territory. That was Dene territory,
Wow.
which is another nation of native people with a totally different language. They're related to the Navajos of
And
Arizona
that's the thing
linguistically.
too. You point out that Cree is as different from Dene
Totally.
as I don't know, English is from Chinese or something
It
like
is, yes,
that. And
yes,
it's like, wow.
Yeah, for instance,
Yeah.
I'll say, for instance, like when a term of astonishment in Cree is when you say something ridiculous like, Francois, have you heard the news? Francois Legault just came out of the closet. He's going to get married to a man. Did you know that? And everybody would respond, nee. That's how we say, oh, good grief. And we have to have the head motion too, the way the neck moves, see? Nee. See, that's Cree body language. Well, the Dene, they're completely opposite. The Dene go, they hear news like that and they'll go, go sleep. It's completely different. They use Dene uses a lot of saliva. Did you see that saliva flying out of her?
Yeah.
I get
I
electrocuted
heard
if I get too close
It's
to
okay,
the
that's your microphone now.
Anyway,
So-
the people out there, both Cree and Dene, and I did too. And so English was my third language. And oh my God, I still don't understand how you reason out thought.
Though thought and tough. I know. You point that out in
rough
here.
And like, how on earth do you get an F sound out of putting a G and an H together? I don't get it. But anyway, that's
I know.
why,
Nobody does.
That's why nobody does.
Now,
And
you say Cree has no gender.
that Cree has no gender. No.
I had no idea of that. And,
Oh, yeah,
and I go, how
absolutely.
does that
There-
work?
We'd have to go to an explanation of the cosmology, which is what I'm writing about right now as we speak. Which I should actually be at home writing this right now.
And all writers should always be at home
instead of
writing,
coming
not up
here
here
to Montreal
talking.
to do a shilly-shally with people like you. I dilly-dally and I lollygag, but I don't shilly-shally.
So
anyway,
no gender.
There's no gender, and so everybody likes that's a spirit, that's circular. There's the phallic design of
Yeah.
Christianity, and then there's the ionic design of Aboriginal languages, Aboriginal cosmology, and there is no he, there is no she. Everybody's a he, she, and therefore God is a he, she. There's room for in Christianity. There is not a single sign of the divinity in female form. Somehow, our mother was pushed out, was killed, beaten to death, or whatever, gone. not a sign of it. Whereas in Native mythology, there is still room for the idea of divinity in female form, the fact that we're all bisexual in that sense. We're all he, she's, and therefore God is a he, she. And the earth is a he, she.
You talk in your book about being a girl and being a woman and being a man and being a boy, and it just is.
Yeah, it just is. There is such a thing as two-spiritedness. In this design, the phallic design, there's room for only two genders, man and woman. And he has complete power over her, and they have complete power over nature, and so on and so forth. On the circle, you have equal status. The female energy and the male energy, they're all mixed in there. And if you read Charles Darwin, The Origin of the Species, which is where I got some of this information, that there are plants whose genes have been spliced somehow and who are ultimately both male and female at the same time. Rocks, fish, cows, dogs. There are two-spirit dogs out there. There are two-spirit cows. There are two-spirit pebbles. Two-spiritedness is a reality. It's a normal, healthy, fundamental, necessary part of the circle of life to have people who are not 100% male and 100% female, but a mixture of both. Here, there's only two genders, and there's hell to pay for those who dare cross that gender divide, whereas there, it's a complete biological normality. It can be proven biologically.
And to what degree would you ascribe the bullying that you experienced at school at the hands of the other boys for whom you were not sufficiently masculine?
It was a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And it was run by Catholic nuns and Catholic priests, many of whom were very kind. There was the occasional rotten apple in there, like everywhere else, and bullies are everywhere. They're in every schoolyard here in Montreal. The weak always victimize the strong always victimize the younger, and people. Like I'm talking about those people who cross the gender divide, who dare try to be female.
Because your father never had a problem with that.
He knew this. He knew you were gay from the very word, and he was the most masculine man who ever lived. He was an athlete, a world-class athlete, and he loved us even more. Mm-hmm. Most men would beat the woman out of their boys, He didn't. He loved us even more, which was just the most miraculous thing on the face of the earth. Yeah. Yep. So I grew up a completely healthy man in that sense, man-woman in that sense, and I glory in it. I cannot imagine anything. I'm sorry, I don't want to insult my straight friends, my straight male friends, because I have a lot of them. I love them. I'm forever falling in love with straight men. And I don't want to have sex with them. I just want to hold them forever. I just want to lie in bed with my arms around them, and that's it, and fall asleep like that. And after a while, sex is overrated. It really is. Too much is made out of it. It's not that. It's important, yes, but it's not that important. Love is more important. And so we just are normal people. We're a necessary part of imagine the world without the two spirits. Imagine a world. There's the black and white world of the heterosexual and the homo and the heterosexual male and the heterosexual female. And never the twain shall meet. What you need, and that's why there's so much violence between men and women.
Because it flies in the face of reality. It's just not real.
Yeah, it's just so unhealthy. And eradicating two-spirit people from the city of Montreal would be like declaring hunting season open on women. There would be no buffer zone. We act as a buffer zone between the two eternally warring factions of male and female heterosexuality, A, and B, traditionally speaking, the heterosexual female was created biologically to give birth. The heterosexual male was created biologically to hunt and feed the family. And for those who weren't equipped biologically for neither role, they were on the third and fourth sides of the circular debating table of gender. And their job was to take care of the spiritual life of the community. And so they became the priests, the shaman, and the artists. There's
a person in your book named Lady.
That's right.
That's a
man named Lady.
Yeah, a man named Lady, and I found him very poignant.
Yeah, he was, and that's what I mean. There was going back to that schoolyard being bullied by the straight boys. Some of them, not all of them. There was a few of them that were just not very nice people. But a lot of them were very, very nice people. Lady was an extreme example. He was I'm sort of effeminate, I think, but I'm not completely masculine, but I'm not completely feminine either. But Lady was an extreme example of that, a woman, as they say, inside a man's body. Like practically a woman. He walked like a woman, he looked like a woman, and there are people like that in every community. And the people just, heterosexual was because it was a Catholic community, and that kind of behavior was illegal.
No.
So he was tortured mercilessly, and at the age 60, he was beaten to death. He was beaten to death in a hotel room in Winnipeg by four straight guys, just beaten mercilessly and left there to bleed to death.
That's tragic.
So he lived another 3 days in a hospital like that, but he died of hatred.
Yeah.
You know that, and there's a lot of that, and there are people, two spirits like that, people like that who have so much to contribute to society, like art. Look at the art we have around us as a result of without that gender, Cher would have nothing to wear, you know?
Nothing
She
to
wouldn't even
wear,
have
nothing to look
hair.
at, nothing to listen to.
You know, I mean, who makes that stuff? That's our job, you know? We provide the colors of the rainbow to the black and white world of heterosexuality, which is boring, A, and B, dangerous. Dangerous as hell.
Very dangerous.
Okay? And so we have this sacred role to fill, and if you kill that, you will be killing society. You will just really be damaging it seriously. And our role, as the other role we have is to take care of the elderly. Because normal people, well, let's put it that way. Normal people are married, they have children, so that's their job. They have to take care of their children. So Europe is full of that, old people being shunted off to the side and living in senior citizens' residence homes and abandoned by their children. Well, that's what we do. We take care of those people. That's one of our sacred duties, and we do that very well, me and my partner. My partner, we lived in France for 14 years. My partner is a world-class bridge player, and he played in bridge clubs up and down the coast of that part of France, right next to Spain, and the villages. And he took bridge is an old people game. It's a retirement game, and he just played bridge up and down the coast of France, taking care of the old people, and they loved him. They just absolutely adored him, and because they loved him, they loved me. So we were like the heroes of La Côte d'Armée, it s'appelle. La Côte d'Armée means the Red Coast, as opposed to La Côte d'Azur, which is the Italian end of things. And so that we were doing, fulfilling a sacred responsibility.
So you've come so very far in so many ways, from subarctic, the subarctic island on Reindeer Lake where you were born.
Yep. No, it wasn't on Reindeer Lake. I was born on a lake north of Brochet, halfway between Brochet and the Nunavut border, which is about a distance of about 250 miles.
Yeah, and so...
I was born on a lake on one of those islands, yes.
And there was something else also you said earlier. The distance between between Brochet and Winnipeg is the same as the distance between Winnipeg and...
No. What I said was, I don't know if I said that, but I do say
You say something astonishing.
The distance between the Nanaimo and Nunavut border, which is already over 1,000 miles, I still think in miles. 1,000 miles between Winnipeg, the North Dakota border and the Nunavut border. And the distance between the Nunavut-Manitoba border and the North Pole, which is almost in Canada, is the same as the distance between Halifax and Vancouver. Wow. And people don't know that.
Just
Nunavut alone,
because of that silly Mercator map.
The vastness is unbelievable. So Nunavut alone is the same size as all of Western Europe, which is all of Europe west of the Soviet Union. And yet Nunavut, Western Europe now has a population of almost 500 million, and I know so because I lived there for many, many years. Whereas Nunavut has a population of only 37,000.
Wow.
You know? And so it goes. So for us, like for me, to come from that kind of area, which is the most extraordinary part of the world, it's so beautiful that there's moments where you can cry because it is so beautiful, especially the land. We're talking about the land of the midnight sun, right? Where in the summertime, in June, the sun sets, never quite really sets. There's always a pink glow on the horizon, and the sun sets at 11:30 and comes up at about 2:30 in the morning, that kind of thing. And the sound that comes with that, you can actually hear the earth breathe, you know? And so to come from that, and so for us, compare that to the southern reality, where to have a school, a great school, 5 blocks away from your home, which is what most city kids have, is to me is unheard of luxury. For us, the nearest school was 600 miles away, so we had to leave home. We had to go to a boarding school to get an education.
You talk about, I mean, you're also a musician and a composer, and you traced your musical birth, in a way, to school.
Yes.
And to Sister Saint Arama. Am I saying her name correctly? Sister Saint Arama?
Who?
Arama. A-R-A-M-A.
Oh, Sister Saint Arama.
Yarama, yeah.
Sister Saint Arama.
Yeah.
That's how we
Arama.
call her.
Arama.
That's a Cree pronunciation. I forgot to include it in the book. A Cree pronunciation of Sister Saint Armand. Arma. So Armand in English,
Yeah.
Arma in French, and Arama in
Arama.
See how funny it is, yeah? Arama. See, you see the way my tongue sort of shoots out when I say that?
So she's this grizzled 60-something.
We do that. That's Cree to the hill. We laugh all the time. Yes?
So she was this old nun.
She's a dumpy little old thing, yes.
Yeah.
She's cute as a button. She was our piano teacher at that boarding school, and she picked me
And that's a
up
turning
as a
point for
student.
you.
Huh?
That was a turning point for you.
Yes. My father was my grandfather was a legendary fiddler. My father was an accordionist, and my mother was an accordion, which made her the happiest woman alive. Yeah, just kidding. Anyway, but I did have a lot of music in my family, and so when I saw my first piano at that boarding school, away I went. You couldn't pull. You know how most kids will not practice the piano, and will learn to hate their teacher and will learn to hate music. Well, with me it was the opposite. You couldn't. A wild herd of 5,000 caribou couldn't have pulled me away from that keyboard. I practiced and I practiced and I practiced, so that within 5 years I was playing. By the time I was 18, I was playing the masterworks of Brahms and Chopin. Now, how many kids from Westmount can say that?
Tomson, I have a feeling.
Yes. I
It's
think
going
we're
to
running
be
out of
time
time.
to take some,
Yes, go ahead.
but there's something, I have a special request.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you could read aloud a little passage here that I marked.
What's it about? Maybe I'll find it.
Well, you know what, I think it's page 331. I put page 133. My brain does that sometimes. So,
Numerology.
or maybe it's 330, just bear with me for one moment. You know, it's that moment where you're looking at the stars from the canoe, right?
Oh, that's early on in the book.
No, it's toward the end, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to, well, maybe you're right, and maybe I was right in the first
Yeah,
place.
we were like.
Oh my God, yeah, I did
it
write
was
it
the
down
early part of the
correctly.
book, yeah.
And he does know where it is in his own book.
Well, I mean, I read that book. Well, you know this.
And-
When you write a book, you read it about 1,000 times, okay?
And I wonder if you would please, just for our pleasure, would you read the last paragraph? You see, I did mark it and all of that.
Oh, you dog-eared it.
Yeah, I did mark it.
I love that. Okay.
The last
Why
paragraph.
do they call these dog ears? They look nothing like dog's ears.
No, they don't.
Okay, so we were, in those days, we had little, just tiny horsepower. Before I was born, there was no motorized traffic. There was no outboard motors. And we traveled by paddle canoe all the time, which is a very, very slow method of traveling, but unbelievably beautiful because you got to look at nature in detail and hear that nature in all its splendor, in all its amazing silence, breathtaking silence, these vast spaces. And most kids in the cities are lucky they have 2 meters of lake waterfront for 2 weeks every year. We had 30 lakes to ourselves, just the family. My father was the king of this little domain, and we grew up like royalty. Yes, Canada has royalty too. Anyway, so we were floating across this boat, and our motor had broken, and we're just floating across, and then there was not a shiver of wind. It was the lake, the water looked like us, and I had fallen asleep. I was 5 years old, lying in the bottom of the canoe with my little brother, and all of a sudden, another one of my sisters said, "Look, over there, there's a fire." I'll say it in Cree. "Anaman se escutiu." That means, look, a fire. And I woke up, and I sat up, because I wanted to see this fire too. And way off in the distance was this campfire, glittering in the distance. And then I realized that we were floating across this reindeer lake. The sides, that's the lake that Brochet is on. imagine Lake Ontario with 5,000 islands, many of them surrounded by beautiful gold sand beaches. Unbelievably beautiful, unbelievable, paradise. Anyway, we're floating across the sand, and all of a sudden I noticed that all around me, oh yeah, when I woke up, I looked up at the stars, and the sky was completely clear, and what I saw was a dome made perfectly of 10 trillion stars. And then I woke up, I sat up, and I looked down around me, and all around me on this vast lake was this very same sky reflected perfectly. So we were floating through an orb made of 25 trillion stars, and this is what I say. The very last paragraph?
The very last paragraph,
Yeah.
slow,
But
nice
for
and
that
slowly.
but for that moment, when I, in essence, am still half sleeping, still half dreaming, we are floating, my family and I, through the heart of this gigantic sphere made exclusively of the purest, most perfect of silver lights. Winking and blinking and nod, sailing off in a wooden shoe to some far country. As I sang, I learned in grade 1 last spring goes. And I know then, at age 7, that no matter what happens to me in life, I will float through the orb of that privileged life. Float, that is, through the heart of the universe in a little magic boat illuminated by Achagwak stars, 1,000,000 strong. Here it is. Achagwak, yeah. Anyway, but that's what, thank you. But that's what, I hate to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, but that's what it feels like, that's what my life feels like. You know, I feel like a piece of magic. You know, I can step on stage to a 9-foot Steinway concert grand piano, sit down and play you music that'll make you cry. It's too bad you didn't provide me with the piano here. And, but I'm used to having a 9-foot concert grand piano provided. I'm just very lucky to get a piano at all. Some of them are wretched pianos in little community halls.
Yeah.
Some of them are electric keyboards, which I don't care about. But occasionally I get a beaut, 9-foot concert. When we play the big concert halls, because I have a really good band, a little trio, and we play all over the place. So we've done Shatner Hall in Toronto. We've done la Sainte des Arts, comment on dit ça? La Place des Arts. We've done la Maison Symphonique.
And you have a new CD now.
No,
What's
the
it?
new CD is not ready yet. They're still putting the package together. It's mixed, it's mastered. The songs are there. They're played beautifully by these fantastic musicians that John Alcorn put together. My musical director, best musical director in Canada. He's a jazz-based pianist and singer. And he put the CD together and found, I wrote the music, but he orchestrated it and for these musicians, these extraordinary musicians, and we recorded it, and now it's fixed. It's fixed. It's fixed so we won't have any babies. It's mixed. It's mixed and mastered, and it's now ready to go for sale, except that the packaging is still being put together. The
What's
design.
it called? What's it going to be called?
Well, we debated it, and they insisted. It wasn't me. My team. I have a fantastic team. They call it Cree Country - Tomson Highway because the lyrics are all in Cree.
Oh, yeah? Sweet.
And with the musicians we had, oh my God, we had. Hopefully that this is not being recorded for too far away. But we're working with Katie Lang's bassist, Tommy Hunter's steel guitarist, Gordon Lightfoot's drummer, and on and on and on. One of the guys who's worked in Nashville, one I used to play with for Buck Owens. You remember Buck Owens and his Buckaroos? Yeah. That quality, ce niveau de la musicalité, it's like amazing. And it sounds so good. When you hear it, you'll cry. But we can't let you hear it yet because it hasn't been released yet. But when it is, I hope you buy it. Because if you don't buy it, I'll never come back to Montreal again.
Okay, also, we're going to take some questions now, I think. And afterwards, you're going to have a chance to buy your copy and have it signed by Tomson. And also buy another copy because the holiday season is coming up and you'll be very glad you did.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ann-Marie. Thank you, Tomson.
Well, it's too bad I didn't get a chance to interview Ann-Marie because I have a lot of questions for her too. And you know, what can you say? You're Ann-Marie MacDonald. You're one of the best writers in Canada. You're the best, you know? And I just love your stuff, and I admire your techniques so much, and your style, all that stuff. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Tomson. Thank you.
But before we get to the questions, are we sure no one has a piano that we can, no one? So I want to invite the people at home to, if you have a question, please put it in the chat or the message board. For people in the audience, just maybe raise your hand. What I'll do, just for sanitary purposes, just get up, you can say your question, and I will repeat it for our guests on stage and also people back home. Anyone want to? Craig, sure.
I'm a huge fan of both of your Playwright. Huge fan. This is a real privilege. And I wanted to know from maybe both of you how imaginatively or even discipline-wise it's different to write a play from a novel in your experience.
Just I'm going to repeat for the people back home. Craig was asking the differences between writing plays and novels.
Go ahead, Tomson.
No, you go first.
Well, when you write a play, you know that it's ultimately going to not be finished until the rest of your collaborators have participated, right? So the script is one part of it. And that's one very important difference, because writing a novel, I am the designers, the director, the everything. But the mere fact that I use that language tells you where my roots are. My roots are in theater. And I always bring that to my work in fiction. I'm theater and film, because I'm thinking, where are we seeing this from? It's almost like, where's the camera? Are we behind a crack in the door? Is this a big wide shot? So the language that I have is very much theater and sometimes film, but it's always point of view, and it is always a performance. When I'm writing a script, I'm playing all of those characters. Mm-hmm. When I'm writing fiction, I'm also trying to make things three-dimensional. I'm trying to not tell the reader what to feel or think, because I wouldn't have that opportunity in theater. I'd have to show. It's the old show, don't tell. So I try to bring that to fiction as well. So I would say that writing plays is a very stringent discipline, and fiction can benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have to listen to actors and the director when you're going through the first rehearsals of the first production of a play, and even the second and third production. You have to listen very carefully, and you have to respect what people say, and absorb some of it, reject some of it, yes, of course. But I think of it also in another way, from the musician's perspective. You know, to me, language is music. It's music making, and I'm a trained musician, and music is at the very base of my thinking and my being. So I think of a play is smaller in structure, and a novel is larger. So I think music. I think in musical terms all the time. To me, a play is like a string quartet. And a novel is like a symphony. And you have, and I think symphonically, I know what sonata form is. I know what fugue is, how to structure a fugue. For me, Dry Lips Out of Move to Capuscasing is a giant fugue for 8 voices. For those of you who don't know what the term fugue means, Bach was the greatest exponent of that, J.S. Bach. And it's like the simplest form of fugue is 4 melodies traveling together, or 3 or 4 melodies traveling together. We can have 8. You know, Bach had, some of them had 8 voices traveling against and together. The simplest form of that is that where when you sing row your boat, Frere Jacques, and whatever the third one is, I can't remember. But when you sing them together, they're traveling against each other, but they're traveling together again at the same time. That's counterpoint. And that's what fugue is. And I think, so that there are fugues in my scenes where 3 characters are talking all at the same time. They all have their line, they all have their objective, they all have their trajectory, and they all have their rhythms and their rhythm of talking. Some of them talk fast, some of them talk slow. Some of them are staccato characters, some of them are legato characters, some of them are allegro characters, some of them are presto characters, and so on and so forth. And I have saxophone characters and flute characters and cello characters, you know? I think in those terms all the time. I can't help it, but I make music. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question from the room? I have a comment from online from Barbara. So wonderful to hear this interview. Can't wait to read Tomson's book. We'll never forget meeting you in Edinburgh, in the bar behind your venue. This is from Barbara and Joe.
We have bars in Montreal?
Is there another question? Deanna, if one's coming through, oh, here we go. Thank you. This one is from Tara McGowan Ross for Tomson. Do you think that your background in music informed your writing, and how does the piano show up in your practice in other mediums?
Okay, one more time. One more time, please.
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's two questions, and I guess so. The first one is, like, do you think your background in music informed your writing?
Yes, of course. I just said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but how does the piano show up in your practice in other mediums? So,
Well, I basically answered that with my last word I just said about music. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I speak, I sing. When I write, I sing. You know, and all the shape of every word is the rhythm. I choose it because of the rhythm and the musicality that it makes. A little example I like to show my friends is, for instance, perhaps she died. You know that song about the little old lady who swallowed a fly? Perhaps she'll die. Okay, the word perhaps is better than maybe. See, if I sing it like this, maybe she died. It sounds too happy, and it's a bouncy rhythm, so I don't do maybe. I do perhaps she died, because there's a little jump there. You know, I think in those terms.
Yeah. It's a little pommel horse right there.
Yeah, I love playing with that. To me, writing is like playing with a big Rubik's Cube. And you're playing with the sound waves, and you're fitting these sound waves together in all kinds of ways that they fit each other, you know? And I love that game, especially when it gets towards the final draft, and you're getting closer and closer to the end. But I must say at the same time that I don't do this by myself. I get a lot of help from editors, and from actors, and directors, and dramaturgists. Yeah, I've never done anything by myself. I've always had the assistance of some very, very kind and generous and brilliant people to help me. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
None of us does
I'm always
anything by
jealous of you that
oneself.
you got to work with Louise Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
And I always wanted to, but anyway, she's not available. She's so busy. Yeah.
Well, maybe,
Best
you know what,
editor.
maybe next time I bet she'd love to work with you.
Oh, last time I saw her, she hugged me, so that was a good sign. And but I had a good one with this one too.
Yeah.
Martha Canyon Forster.
Yeah.
You're working with her
Yeah,
right
I'm working with her
now.
now,
She
too.
told me.
She's fantastic.
She's
Yeah.
brilliant. She's so. I've never seen an editor take through. Oh, I lost so many chapters from that book. The first draft was about 800 pages long, and then with Martha, we shaved it down to 700, 600, 500, and we ended up with 300. And she has this way of ripping 3 chapters out of the book, out, you know, and somehow turning it into one sentence later on in the book somewhere, and capturing the essence of those 3 chapters that you lost. And she just has this way of doing that. And how anybody can see, it's like the draft that you bring to her is like a rough piece of marble, and she, as the editor, sees the form inside that rough rock, sees the fine statue that's inside there. And you keep carving away with her until you find that refined piece of work. And she helped me get there with this. Mm-hmm. And I thank her every day of my life for doing this. And people like her, they're everywhere. I've just had so much help in this life. I've received so much love every step of the way. And every day of my life is an act of thanks. It really is. Yeah. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Is there any more questions in the room? Deanna, you're sending me one, Deanna? Is that okay? Maybe while I wait for that to come in, I do have a question, Tomson. I'm curious. You mentioned wanting to write 5 different memoirs, and I'm kind of curious. Like, are you writing them all at the same time, or are you? Are you, where are you now, and are you in
I
the
haven't
process?
started the next one yet because I'm working on it. I haven't started the next one yet because I'm working on another project. I don't just write biographies. I write other stuff, and I can't talk about what I'm writing right now because I'm not supposed to. It's top secret. It's otherwise I'm also so scared of jinxing things. You know, like if you talk too much about them in advance, the editor will die. You know, or the publishing house will burn to the ground or whatever. You know, so you don't want to jinx it, so you don't talk about it. But I am. It'll come in good time. The next book takes me. That one will take me from age 15 to age 30, and then age 30 to age 45, which is my theater period when I became a playwright. 45 to 60, and 60 to 75, which is when I die. I want to be there. I want to be there for the death scene. I want to write my death scene. I want to choose the way I'm going to die. It's going to be quick. You know, like I'm going to write something so scandalous that I will get assassinated, and they have to be accurate so that I will die instantly. But I will have made a point. And I know the plot already.
Okay, we do have another question from online. This one is from Janet. Janet is asking, can you speak about Indigenous writers that you admire, Tomson?
Is this for me?
Yes. Other Indigenous writers you admire?
Dear, I admire all of them. I admire all of them because I love them all. Well, not all of them, but some of them I don't get along with. I mean, it's impossible to get along with everybody, you know. I can't name anybody that I like. Richard Van Camp. He lives in Edmonton, but he's from the Northwest Territories. He's half Dene and half Dutch, which is why he has the Dutch name, Van Camp. He's a clever man. I love his. He's witty. He's clever and funny, whimsical sense of humor. I like Eden Robinson from British Columbia, from Kitimat, BC, who wrote Monkey Beach, for instance, and the Tricksters, whatever it's called. She's from Kitimat, and she's right on the coast of British Columbia, close to Prince Rupert. And she's just a very, very funny woman who laughs almost constantly. And she's clever, fine storyteller. I love her very much.
Are you talking about Eden? Eden Robinson?
Who?
Eden Robinson?
Eden Robinson, yeah. She's a very special person. And there are others, you know. But I'll stop there, I think, because it's a long list. But I always tease Eden about the fact that she's part Sasquatch. Because she comes from Sasquatch country. And you can tell just by looking at her which part is Sasquatch. Especially when she's facing the other way and she bends over. That's Cree humor coming to the fore, surfacing. And we can't let it surface in a polite company like this. I can't. I'd love to tell some of my impolite stories, but I can't. Because you're too polite. You're a polite audience, aren't you? I'll tell you one of them. This is Cree humor to the hilt, okay? Native humor. We laugh a lot. We laugh a lot. A friend of mine went to Greenland recently. Oh, that's a beautiful place. You should go there sometime. And so I said to her, so did you? I've been there. So I said to her, so did you eat seal? And she said, yes. And I said, so what did the seal think? And she said, well, he seemed to like it. But I like the whiskers. So you know where your brain goes with that one, right? So you sit there and laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. One time we were laughing so hard up in Tomson, Manitoba, that this woman, this God's truth, her dentures came flying out of her mouth. They bounced off my knee and clattered to the ground and clattered across. And ate everything in sight. And everybody loved it. A gay old time was had by all.
It's contagious.
So maybe if I'm just seeing if there's one more message. Anyone in the room for one last question?
One last toot.
There is one. Okay, so maybe this will be the last question. Is one question from online. Tomson, do you need to employ any kind of process for recalling things from so far in your past, or does it just come back to you naturally?
Well, you know what? Eudora Welty, whom I just read recently, said something very, very interesting about memory and the way it works. And Erin Murray, whom I was not here tonight, was one of my favorite poets. She lives here, eh? Do you know her? Do you hang out with her? Erin Murray.
I don't know that. No, I don't.
Yeah, she lives here in Montreal.
Erin Murray?
Erin Murray, yeah. She's a fabulous poet. She said that something about memory and Eudora Welty, memory tricks you. You know, it cannot possibly come out in the exact way the thing actually happened, because it can't. So your facts shift about and change form on their own and change order, because your memory is inaccurate. So that in itself is an act of magic, and your story comes out being twice more magical than it would have been if you remembered exactly, factually. I like that about Eudora Welty. For those of you who don't know her, she's a Southern writer from Mississippi, I think. Those Southern writers, they're so clever. Yeah, she's gone now. She flourished in the 1950s, 60s, and then she left us. She died.
All right, well, let's give our guests a round of applause.
Yeah, all of them. Flannery O'Connor, Carson McCullers, Harper
I'm
Lee.
going to invite Rebecca West, the executive director of the association.
Thank you for having me in your beautiful city, receiving me into the bosom of your beautiful city. I've been received into many a bosom before, but it's the best bosom I've ever seen.
And you know what?
Congratulations.
And belly up to the bosom of the signing table and get your book.
But before we go, Rebecca West from the Association of English Language Publishers of Quebec is going to say a few words. So,
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're a wonderful interviewer. I know, isn't it though, eh? I had to, yeah. They could hear you better. Yeah. Was, yeah, okay, well, whatever. Yeah. No, I had trouble hearing you too. So I had to really strain my ear. And then I didn't quite hear, so
Thank you, Chris.
I'd say whatever I would say.
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, thank you both for such a beautiful conversation and bringing so much joy and the colors of the world into this otherwise dreary evening. It was really lovely to listen to your conversation. We have a couple prizes to give away, both to someone in the room and someone online. I'd ask you to check underneath your chair, near the front of it. Everyone, please. Could be under anyone's chair. Does anyone?
What are you doing?
They might need a hint, at least. No?
What is Elisa doing tonight?
Give.
A student presentation? She must be very busy, eh?
Elise, maybe you can help out our winner. I don't
How
know
long has
which
she been
chair
at
it
that job
is.
now? 6 years?
In the meantime, perhaps I'll announce our online winner, who is Helen Prinold. Thank you, Helen, for participating in the chat, and we'll get you a gift soon. A big thank you to Raincoast Books and Paragraph Books. Hey, we have a winner.
Eden would have killed me to hear me say that. When I said that she looks like self-taught. When I said she looks like
Yeah, so thank you to Raincoast Books and Paragraph for those generous gifts. I'd like to express thanks to my fellow Holiday Book Fair team members, as well as our partners, the Quebec Writers Federation, the Violet Hour, Paragraph, of course, LTAC, our sponsors, Penguin Random House, Babar Books, and the Montreal Gazette, and of course our funders who made this evening possible, the Department of Canadian Heritage, Canada Council for the Arts, and SODEC. Yeah, as Anne-Marie was mentioning, please check out the book sales table at the back to get a copy signed by one of our authors. And If you're looking for other, book ideas before the holidays, readquebec.ca/books is the place to go. Due to a small schedule change, the holiday book fair is not yet over. You can check out Marie-Claire Blais and Katia Grubisik Sunday evening Saturday at 7 p.m. I'm not sure what I said there. Saturday at 7. Next week, come see us at Salon du Livre. We'll be there Thursday through Sunday, November 25th to 28th. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and have a great evening.